Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Bauer. I'm the Chief of our Personnel Programs Division here in the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. I'm joining you today from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. I'd like to begin by welcoming each of you and really thanking you for investing your time today to learn more about the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, in particular, our software enterprise that will focus today during our Ask Me Anything session. The Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, we're headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. We're one of 6 centers that report to the Air Force Materiel Command. So simply put, our organization, we're charged with the lifecycle management of Air Force weapon systems from inception until retirement. So in other words, our motto is if airmen fly it, if they fuel it, if they transport it, drive it, wear it, shelter in it, communicate with it, or drop it on targets, our organization provides that. And across the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, we do that through 26,000 airmen, military, civilian, contractor employees that are spread across our 9 major operating locations in dozens of smaller sites worldwide. As you're likely already aware, right now we are actively recruiting for talented individuals to join our Air Force Lifecycle Management team as civilian employees through our software enterprise to help us with delivering on products and services that we provide to the warfighter when they need it. Our current recruitment campaign, it is currently open through May 1st of this year. We do ask if you're an interested or eligible candidate to please consider submitting your application to us through our virtual resume portal, where you'll provide us with your resume, your official or your unofficial transcripts, a list of professional references, etc., to help us with that resume review process. As you may be aware, we do have a limited number of opportunities that are available at this time for immediate fill. So we do ask, if you don't hear from us in the next several weeks, your resume, just keep in mind, it will remain on file with our recruitment team so that we can consider you for additional opportunities as they become available. If you've not yet had a chance, we'll make sure that we drop a copy of the link today in our chat so that if you've not yet submitted your resume, you know where to go to do exactly that by May 1st. So without further delay, we'll go ahead and jump into our Ask Me Anything session today. Just as a reminder, we'll utilize this time for as long as it's needed, but up to the rest of the hour. During this time, you'll have the chance to meet with a subject matter expert. We'll answer your questions on the software enterprise, the exciting missions that we support, and more. So after an introduction, you'll be invited to raise your hand. You'll be welcome to come off mute, post your questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring that so we can vocalize any questions that you might have over the course of the next hour. So turning our attention now to our panel member, I'd now like to introduce you to Lieutenant Colonel John Priestley. He's our materiel leader for Unified Platform and director of Level Up Code Works. And he is here today to talk with you about how he serves the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, in particular, our software enterprise. I'll turn the floor over to him to do a brief introduction on his background and how he supports the software enterprise. And after that, we'll start to open it up for any questions that those joining us on the call today might have for Lieutenant Colonel Priestley or myself today. So with that, Lieutenant Colonel Priestley, the floor is yours if you'd like to do a quick introduction.
Yeah, no, sounds great. Thank you, Amber, or Jennifer, excuse me. I was looking at Amber's name while you were speaking, so I got crossed up there. Hey, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this discussion. Excited to have a few folks here and answer some questions. As Jennifer mentioned, I am the materiel leader or program manager for the Unified Platform program. That particular program is a joint program that is executed within the Air Force. However, our requirement and user is U.S. Cyber Command and the larger Cyber Mission Force. And then so you're probably wondering, well, what the heck do you guys have to do with the software enterprise? Well, in order to deliver that very software intensive capability, we established a software development environment and a software factory organically within our program office to support a DevSecOps approach to delivering software in an agile way to support cyber operations, where the needs of the operational community really changes with tremendous pace, given how quickly this cyber terrain can change. And so that's kind of how we became part of the ecosystem. And so the software enterprise that we keep talking about really comprises of a number of things. It comprises of programs, it comprises of people or talent, it comprises processes, and in particular acquisition processes. And one of the things that the DoD has recently done is stand up the software acquisition pathway, which is an approach to acquisitions that is better aligned with doing agile software development, where the approach is to match the pace of needs or the change of those needs with the overall acquisition of material solutions. And so I say all that because the Unified Platform was the DoD's very first software acquisition pathway program. And so one of our major contributions to the software enterprise is that we operate and maintain the Level Up software factory, which is built in accordance with our Chief Information Officer's DevSecOps reference architecture. But also we've been a big part in defining, what are the types of talent that we need within the software factory ecosystem? What are the things that we care about when we develop and deliver software? And what are the reporting constructs that are necessary to give insights to DoD level folks, as well as our congressional oversight councils and things like that. So, I would argue that we've been kind of right in the middle of this, and in a lot of ways, kind of the guinea pig for some of the new ways that the DoD is looking at acquiring software intensive capabilities. And I think that's a good intro.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. Thank you so much. All right, so now's the exciting time. This is where we just welcome anyone who's joining us today. If you have questions, you are more than welcome to come off mute, to ask your question, to post it in the chat. We'll also kind of toss some discussion questions around on those who are joining us today. So we'll also try to talk about some other topics that might be of interest as well. So before I launch into a question, I'll just pause here. I'll see if there's anyone who's joining us that already has a question that they would like to ask the team today. Yeah, Mr. Jones, go ahead.
Yes, I was going to ask the question, as part of the software delivery, what part of this is cyber security, or how is that going to be integrated with the plans of the program, and how many roles, I guess, are available in that space?
Yeah, so it's going to depend a little bit, but I can maybe speak to where we are as the Level Up software factory and where the overall software ecosystem is trying to go. In industry, when it comes to software, we hear a lot about DevOps. We have the DevOps handbook, we have the Unicorn, the Phoenix project, and all these other things that kind of provide perspectives on what it means to integrate development and IT operations. Within our construct, we're also very concerned about security, not to say that industry isn't as well. We just kind of coined the term, if you will, within the DoD DevSecOps, and that sec is really the security portion of that overall alignment of people, processes, and technology to rapidly deliver capabilities. So what we've done under that construct is we've basically integrated the security compliance, code quality, and other sorts of developmental testing that give us insight into how our cyber security hygiene is and some of the vulnerabilities that may exist within our software development. We've essentially integrated that into our development pipelines or our software development platform. And so when developers commit code to our software factory, we are sort of automatically, or in an automated way, continuously testing our cybersecurity hygiene, code quality, and other important aspects of that software development to ensure that when we're ready to deploy to an operational or a production environment, that we are ready to, and we've burned down some of those risks that would otherwise exist in a more waterfall approach to software development.
So you have the SaaS, DAST, and software composition testing already integrated with your CI/CD pipeline, and now you're primarily focused on cloud development, or is it focused on hybrid?
It's hybrid. We've made more progress on the cloud-oriented development activities where we're leveraging those as-a-service constructs. in particular for the infrastructure and platform segments of that architecture. But we also understand that as a military, we need to operate in disconnected and embedded system environments. And so there's less success stories there, but there are success stories there, and we're trying to proliferate that now to the enterprise.
Last question is, how much of this is focused on Space Force? That was a focus of my interest.
Yeah, so for LCMC, not a whole lot, but what I will say is that the larger DoD ecosystem includes things like Space Camp, which is another software factory, and we're all working together in sort of a DoD open source project way to contribute to a DevSecOps platform. Those folks, that would be Platform One, who is also part of this hiring event, and so they maintain and curate that sort of foundational DevSecOps platform on behalf of the DoD, and so the Space Force is one of their consumers and users of that foundational development platform.
Okay. Are you actively hiring for those types of cybersecurity roles?
I don't know what all the roles are. I assume there's some 2210s in the mix, right, Jen, as well as some engineering positions.
Yep, absolutely. And if I could also add, even if there's not one open perhaps right now today, I would still go ahead and submit your resume, because we'll be utilizing that as kind of our pool to pull from as those types of opportunities arise. But on our landing page, actually, I do see that it was posted in the chat right now. You'll see all the kinds of jobs that we're currently advertising for DSIPs. There's actually a little bit more detailed information because it's a mix of GS, ActMO, as well as DSIPs positions. So if you check out our link, though, it'll also give you location information as well as the occupational titles, etc.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Priestley, and thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we all have plenty of cybersecurity positions. So that's a skill set that we lean on quite heavily to ensure that we can actually do what you mentioned, which is CI/CD software development with baked in security. And so we have a significant team that's secure, operate, and defend our platform.
That's all the questions I had at this time.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Mr. Jones. I'll pause here. Are there any other individuals who are joining us on the call today that has a question right now for Lieutenant Colonel Priestley, whether it's about the software enterprise? We're also here to help if you've got questions on hiring, etc. Oh, I do see we've got a question in the chat, so I'll go ahead and vocalize that one. The question is, what's the office environment like within the software organizations? Are we working from home? Are you working in an office? Is it a mixture? So, sir, if you'd like to take that one.
Yeah, it's definitely a mixture. And so the different programs have different security constraints. But I can speak to a few of them down here in San Antonio, where we have very much a hybrid workforce. And even our local workforce is, so we have fully remote, and we have folks that are doing ad hoc telework here locally in San Antonio. And so Platform One and Level Up, we are located in downtown San Antonio, just steps from the Riverwalk here. So that's a deliberate selection of location to co-locate ourselves with a technology district here in San Antonio, as well as, to be frank, to attract the talent to an environment that is conducive to doing software development, where we don't have some of the same constraints that you'll typically find on base as part of a traditional DoD network infrastructure.
Awesome, great question. So I do have a question for you. So what are some of the coolest things that your organization does at this point? Is there anything that comes to mind that really sticks out as just really cool things in your career, your time with the organization? It's like those are just really pinnacle moments when you think back on the things that your organization has done and what you've delivered.
Yeah, I mean, so we support the cyber community, and we'll keep it public releasable, of course. is, we did a lot of work back in the 2020 time frame, as well as beyond that, to support U.S. Cyber Command in ensuring the integrity of our elections. So that really started with the presidential elections, and then has carried forward into some of the legislative branch elections, as well as some of the local, state, and further down local elections that have taken place. And so we've done that in partnerships with National Guard Bureau and other non-DoD entities. And so that was kind of a cool experience, getting to be involved in something that's very public and in the open, discussed quite a bit during pre and post election. More frequently is, I talked about how quickly the cyber terrain evolves over time, and our understanding of how our adversaries are going to operate within those environments. So the current, conflict in Europe with Russia and Ukraine has obviously put pressure on us to respond to those needs of our operational community. And so we've done a lot of development in responding in agile ways to support their needs. And so there's a lot of that kind of stuff that is very much obvious, maybe more obvious than you might be in a traditional program office, where it takes decades sometimes to realize a capability.
All right, great, thank you. All right, I'll pause here. I'll see if there are any questions in the chat. I do see we got a question. It looks like it's Mr. Jones just checking on a rec number or something to search. Just one item to mention, in terms of the positions and how exactly you'll submit your resume, it's not on USA Jobs. It's just going to be on the landing page. The link is in the chat. That's where you'll go to submit your resume and any of your supporting documents. In addition, in terms of the types of positions that are being filled, Lieutenant Colonel Priest, I'll let you also answer this, but it's a range from journeyman to senior level and anything in between, even looking if an opportunity would exist to consider, developmental candidates, et cetera, whether it's through this event or through other opportunities. Would you agree with that, or anything with regard to the types of positions in terms of level that you're targeting?
Yep. So it evolves over time, of course, as the work we have evolves and the vacancies, to be frank, within the organization. But on the whole, we have a breadth of occupational series that we leverage within our program office. So 1101s, program manager types, engineering across several disciplines or sub-disciplines within engineering. To include the recent update for a data science occupational series. We leverage the 2210 or cyber operations support career field. We have a few non-functionally aligned folks. We have contracting, the 1102s. We have FM, the 501s. So yeah, we have a very broad range that exists within our cross-functional team. And then on the grade side of the house, I mean, we actually, we're going to get a few more here soon, but we have PSIPs, which are college interns. We have Palace Acquires, which are, full-time interns that have just graduated college and are in a training program for a potential future permanent position. And then we have grades from anything from 7 up to 15 within this organization. So there is a breadth, and we are continuing to look at ways to grow people within. So those developmental positions that are like, 7 target 12 or other are also part of our construct.
Great, we appreciate that. Mr. Jones, did you have your hand raised for a question? Yes,
Good.
sir, go ahead.
So I was going to ask, is it better to, with the way the civilian service works, do you come in as like an LLC and you're part of the civilian service, or actually hired by the Air Force as a civilian contractor? And can you clarify some of that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, so we have both. So we do organic software development, so that's different than most. But to build that organic team, we leverage military, civilian, and a contracted workforce. So this particular event, though, and Jennifer can double down here, is about filling vacancies within our civilian corps.
So you'd be hired by the Air Force as part of the civilian arm. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir, that's exactly right. And I also see joining us today, we also have Mr. Owens. Mr. Scott Owens is joining us. He is also part of our organization. So I just want to give a quick shout out and thanks to him for joining us today. So over the course of time, you might see him come off mute if he'd like to help answer any questions that those joining us today may have. But thanks so much, Mr. Jones, for that question. Mr. Owens, do you have anything you'd like to say before we move on to the next question from the group?
No, apologize for joining a little bit late, and I recognize a little bit that last question. So that is a civil service position. I know some agencies have a contract with a civil servant, a term type of appointment, and that is not this. So yeah, happy to join.
Yes, Mr. Jones, go ahead.
The reason why I asked is I've done work through financial institutions that had contracts with DOD, DOI, DOE. You probably know some of the names, but I've also done it as like a third-party contractor back during my DOE days at Oak Ridge National Labs, places like that.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. We're definitely looking for tons of different experience. Diversity of background is huge, I would say, within these organizations. So definitely really appreciate that information, kind of getting us having that conversation on the types of positions exactly that we're looking for. So I'll pause real quickly and we just check our chat and see if there are any other questions out here. I'll also pause for some of our other members who are joining today to see if they've got questions. You're welcome to come off mute. If there are no questions, we can move on to another one. All right, I'm not seeing anyone come off mute. No questions in the chat. All right, so Lieutenant Colonel Priestley, a question for you about programming language. Are there certain types of skills within programming language, et cetera, that you are ideally seeking or that you think are most commonly used across your organizations, in particular our software enterprise?
Yes. I mean, general software programming talent is fantastic, and having diversity in that area is certainly helpful. Our team down here at Level Up, we tend to use a lot of Java, C, and geez, I'm drawing a blank here. Java, C, and I'm drawing a big blank right here. You caught me off guard. But earlier I talked about integrating cybersecurity into our overall software development process, and so that does sometimes put constraints on the languages that we can support because some of those languages are harder to secure than others. A great example is that within the data science community and other communities, there's a push to move to things like Rust, if you're familiar with that particular programming language. And so our DevSecOps platform doesn't necessarily support that language yet from an automated perspective. So those are things that we're continuously looking at to evolve our platform so that we can enable our dev teams to get after the problem sets that we presented them with. So there's not really a specific area. I will say that with Level Up, we're very much like interested in folks that have experience across the full stack of development. So whether it's infrastructure, apps and services, or within the data sciences area, those are all things that we would leverage those skills greatly within our office.
Great, thank you so much for that. So you've talked a little bit about some of the maybe traditional skill sets. Are there any non-traditional type skill sets that really bring forward and make someone a great candidate to work in one of our software organizations?
Yeah, sure. So non-traditional is all about perspective. So from a DoD perspective, we do a lot of non-traditional things. Again, we're employing an acquisition approach that leverages organic talent to get after the procurement activity. And so we, program managers in a traditional DoD sense are also employing principles and tools and mindsets that are also well aligned with project management within industry, Scrum Masters, product owners, and things like that that are really part of that the agile software development ecosystem. Those are some of those non-traditional skill sets that we have in our program office that we've had to either train our folks, or we've looked in creative ways to bring on that talent. And we do a lot of things, and Mr. Owens can probably attest to this. We do a lot of things that are kind of against the grain. So folks that can kind of think outside the box and look at solving problems in new ways. Those are some great attributes that do well within our program office, and some of the others as well.
Yeah, just adding to that a little bit. Some of us are more comfortable in a very structured environment where there's a known requirement out there, and it's turning the crank on that. That's not what we're looking for today. In these agile environments, we have to be responsive to the changing demands that we see from the operational users in the field, and be comfortable with that. So, sometimes we call it, we need to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because in a good way, it's just very dynamic out there, and we need people that are organized and can manage that in terms of the backlogs of taskings that are there, and just being comfortable, trying to stay ahead and field capabilities quickly. Which probably in your first week on the job appears chaos, but then after that, you're comfortable with that.
That's exactly right, sir.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that kind of leads me to another question. I heard you talk a little bit about, training the workforce, getting them up to speed on the environment that we would work in within a software organization, and the different capabilities or skills that someone might need to have. Can you talk a little bit about, for those individuals that are coming into an organization, what does training look like for them, or what do opportunities to gain training, to gain new skills, talents, et cetera? Are opportunities like that available? Is that something that they're presented with opportunity for right away, or is there a boot camp type of a training? Boot camp in the sense of like a dedicated time where they're just consistently doing some different technical type training and refining of their skills. Are those types of opportunities available within the software organizations?
Yes, there's definitely a number of all those types that you spoke to. So most of us have some amount of initial onboarding and orientation so that we can give folks at onboard some perspectives about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we do it. In particular, here at Level Up, we have a Level Up 101, and we have a 102, and those are things that are basically orienting newcomers to, again, how we do business and the way that we get after our agile development activity, and where our requirements come from, and things like that, and kind of talk about what your role might be within that overall framework, and the other roles that exist within it. There's other things. Next week we, as part of our planning activity, we have an innovation day. So we'll be providing some training to our workforce on some of the tools that we leverage, like Splunk, a BDP 101, which is our data platform, how to be an analyst on that program, or on that particular platform. And then a number of other things like agile coaching and Scrum Master training and things like that. So those are, deliberate opportunities that we intend to make available on a sort of a quarterly basis to our team. Some other things out there, again, Platform One is not here for this particular event, but they also have a 6-month residency program that gives folks in a variety of different backgrounds, whether they be contracting or program management or software development, give them the opportunity to have to sit with the Platform One team and get hands-on experience doing agile contracting, agile program management, or software development on the DoD's core DevSecOps capability. And then there's the traditional, civilian training that we always are working through every year with folks, whether they be, leadership training and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Because like you mentioned, even beyond what you might need for your day-to-day activities, the Air Force does offer a lot of different great opportunities in terms of civilian developmental education opportunities, chances to partner with other agencies, organizations, et cetera, to hone in on your skills at a variety of levels, whether it's as a entry-level individual, journeyman, or even a senior level. So, sir, I heard you mention a little bit about program management, and I believe for your particular organization, you're really interested in finding some program managers to join your organization. Could you talk a little bit about what's the day in a life of a program manager supporting your organization? What does that look like for them?
Yeah, and so that's a great question because number one, yes, we at Level Up are hyper focused on filling some key program management vacancies at the next event. Sometimes when we get DoD program managers, even if they have a lot of experience, are taken aback a little bit when they join our team because of the type of work that we're doing, and it's in a good way. There's a little bit more reward, I think, in the day-to-day work that is being done because you're closer to it, you're responsible for it, you're held accountable for it in a different way than maybe you previously experienced in a DoD program office. And so I mentioned a little bit, it's a little bit of DoD program management. So think DAU style stuff. So preparing solicitation packages, RFPs, instructions to offerors, section L&M for source selection criteria, doing core duties, which is, oversight of contracts and things like that. But on the flip side of that, it's also that, planning and resourcing and Scrum Master type roles that are really enabling software developers to get after the work that they're responsible for. So to me, it's a little bit of program management DoD style, and then project management industry style. And we're kind of fully responsible in our program office for the end-to-end activity, which is not totally unique, but unique nonetheless across the DoD program offices.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for that. So I do see some questions appearing in our chat, so I'll quickly read through them. The first question is on travel opportunities. Are there opportunities to participate in travel, whether it's between bases, domestic and or international? So for your organization in particular, or if there's others that you can speak to, would you say that travel is a big portion, a small portion, or something, an opportunity that's available given, the work that that candidates would perform in these positions?
Historically, we've basically had occasional travel, so monthly, bi-monthly, things like that. We're kind of trying to figure ourselves out, I would say, a little bit as we've come out of the pandemic and are moving more towards an epidemic sort of or endemic state. So, but definitely occasional travel, a lot on the East Coast, and then some other intermittent opportunities to different parts of for domestic travel. Things like that as we visit with our different operational users. International travel is an interesting one. I could see that being a scenario, especially as we look to integrate our capabilities within a coalition or a NATO and Five Eyes sort of situation. We've talked about that, and it's on the horizon. I just don't know what that looks like from a travel perspective just yet. And I can't really speak to the other programs, but what I've seen at least is predominantly domestic.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, I know we've talked a little bit about different programs. Can you also talk about, within our AFLCMC, within the software enterprise, there's several software factories or software organizations that create that enterprise. When we talk about those different software organizations where there are opportunities, do you all work collaboratively on projects, or are you more independent? Do you rely on one another to do the work that needs to be done, or do you all specialize in something to where you're not so much cross-sharing and working together across those other organizations?
Yeah, so both. We definitely collaborate on those things where we have common interest, but the different software factories only exist because there's a specialty that we're focusing on, or an opinionation of the development platforms that we have to establish. And so, for example, recently in Austin at South by Southwest, a number of the DoD software factories got together to collaborate on some common problems. We're actually going to get back together next week up in Colorado Springs. Space Camp is going to be hosting. And we're going to get back together again and talk about some additional areas where we can collaborate on common issues, concerns, and technical problems, whether they be talent-oriented, process-oriented, or technology-oriented. We are definitely doing that, but there's also a specialization that happens, which is necessary really for a software factory to have its own mission. And so like a Level Up, for instance, we're very much opinionated towards servicing the cyber community, and in particular, U.S. Cyber Command and those that they work with by extension.
Yeah, if I could add on to that, the journey, the software journey that the Air Force is on is a combination of meeting those operational needs. And that's the coolest thing about being part of that ecosystem, is the Air Force has so many mission domains, we call them. He mentioned cyber, there's space, there's strike, air superiority, command and control. All the things that our airmen do for our national security need this expertise. So there's a lot of diversity in the mission domain space. But to do that efficiently, the path that the Air Force is on, we're trying to get a handle on the security of those tech stacks and the affordability of those tech stacks, so that not everyone is reproducing something that they don't have to reproduce to meet that mission domain user. So we really have both. We have a lot of diversity at the top of the tech stack, working on applications for operational users, but we're paying a lot of attention on the security of the underlying tools and cloud infrastructure and other environments that it takes to deploy those tools. And obviously we want to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. So we are trying to be efficient about that. So really, all kinds of talent needed to manage all of the skill sets that are required to pull that off. And one other element, there's also, we're very interested in program managers that can manage in these various environments. Sometimes they're organically focused, but sometimes there's a lot of contractors involved that each have a special niche or a tool. And we need to fund them, and we need to hold them accountable and focus them on the requirements that they need to satisfy. So very dynamic environment, and that's why we need sharp PMs and other skill sets, obviously, to be a part of that team.
Great, thank you so much. So I see another question in the chat. But before I ask that, I'll just ask a quick question to Lieutenant Colonel Priestley as well as to Mr. Owens. So the question is, how difficult is it to transfer from location to location? I'll expand it a little to say, what types of opportunities are there to move about the Air Force as a civilian employee? So just my quick question for both of you, if you could quickly add up how many different assignments you've had within the Air Force, what does that number look like? I'll say mine, I've had 5 different assignments within the Air Force as a civilian employee, transferring between different organizations where maybe I'm still doing the same work, but now I'm doing it for a different customer, for a different program or a different mission area. So there's tons of opportunity, whether you stay in one place or whether you're interested in geographic mobility. So for both of you, Mr. Owens, if you'd like to go first, could you say about how many different opportunities have you found yourself as a member of the Air Force, and talk a little bit about the opportunities to move about?
Sure. So I've been a civilian in the Air Force for about 6 years. I spent 30 years in uniform on active duty, and that has a built-in travel program, right? So we're moved all the time. But as a civilian, I am on my second job, and that's kind of typical. That 3-ish year time frame is a reasonable amount of time to spend in an organization, because when you get there, you learn the position, then you are doing the position, and then you're improving the positions, over that 3 or 4 or 3-year time frame. In terms of the geographic, that's one of the things, if you're willing to do that as a civilian, sometimes that's uncommon. So that can be a real advantage if you're willing to move about the Air Force. There's such a great diversity. The Air Force is your oyster. But in terms of relocating, I would expect to stay someplace 3 years. But if you're willing to move around, there are definitely opportunities, and some of our locations are hard to fill. So, if you have that desire to work at some of these installations, there's tons of opportunities to work in the Air Force.
Great.
So
thanks,
JP,
sir.
over to you.
Yeah, so as Mr. Owens mentioned, I'm as an active duty officer, I'm kind of part of that built-in program for being moved around. But what I will say to that is that, in the, I don't even know how many years I've been in, 16, 17 years now. I've had 7 different organizations that I've worked for across all the domains that the Air Force contributes to. And at all those different organizations, the Civilian Corps has been a critical component of achieving and contributing to the mission area. And so, like Mr. Owens said, if you have the desire to move around and the flexibility to do so, you can. If you don't want to, then there's plenty of opportunities for civil service folks, whether it be San Antonio, Hanscom, Wright Pat, or even potentially through remote work.
Great, sir. Thank you so much, both of you, for those responses. So I do know we're drawing in on about our last 10 minutes or so. So just want to give a quick heads up on where we stand on time. I see we do have a question in the chat right now. So let me real quickly read through it. Is there an opportunity to use and grow pilot skills to support any Air Force need, if only a VFR pilot currently? I'm not sure if either of you have enough information to answer that. If not, that might be something that we work to answer a little bit later. So I'll just pause real quickly, and if not, we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so the next question, what about work-life balance? Can you talk a little bit about what types of opportunities are available within the Air Force to support work-life balance? I can just chime in very quickly. We have so many different programs that support our total force, really, whether it's a health and wellness program where there's opportunity to participate in physical fitness time each and every week if approved by your supervisor. That's an example. Another example would be that we have a civilian health and wellness program where you can participate in different classes, whether it's to focus on maybe a nutritional item, or maybe it's stress or things of that nature. We also have an employee assistance program, a 1-800 number that you can really call at any time. I think one of the neatest stories I've heard about the employee assistance program is say that you find yourself in a situation where you're responsible to care for perhaps aging parents. You can actually contact the employee assistance program, and they will help to source some resources that are in that local area to help you with your particular situation. So they're really there to help try and take the stress off of things that might be going on in our day-to-day, and to support you as a professional, as a member of the Air Force. And so beyond that, there's so many other things, whether it's the opportunity for sick leave, for vacation time, and for annual leave as some examples. So we have a host of benefits that really get after trying to support that work-life balance. And I think within the Air Force, we have such a great community that's always looking out for one another. We often refer to it as being good wingmen to one another. So we're constantly looking out for not only are we doing our day-to-day tasks, but how are you as a person doing? Are you doing well? Is there something that we as an Air Force can provide to better support you? I do see the next question is, it looks like, are we allowed to use the gyms when we are government employees? And the answer is generally yes. Typically, most installations, if you're located on an installation, there will be a gym available. And so if you're approved to participate in physical fitness time during your duty day, you would be able to leverage that local gym and take advantage of that as a great benefit, in addition to the host of other benefits that are available. All right, I'm just going to pause, see if we've got any other questions in the chat. I'll also pause here. I know we've got several members joining us on the line. If you would like to come off mute to ask a question, I'll pause here. And if there's no other questions, I'll go to the next one. Okay, I'm seeing no questions. No one's coming off mute. So since we're closing in on our final couple moments here, I'll turn to both Mr. Owens as well as to Lieutenant Colonel Priestley just to see if you have any final comments, anything that you'd like to share. Of course, this is a recorded session, so even if there are individuals not joining us today, is there something that you'd like them to know, whether it's about your organization, about what we do on behalf of the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center in support of the Air Force, et cetera. So I'll really turn it over to both of you for any of your comments on it. And Lieutenant Colonel Priestley, if you would like to go first, I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, and so I don't want to get too kind of high level here, but if I could a little bit, there's only so many times and so many things within the Department of Defense that you could call transformational. And the Air Force is doing a really good job leading the way in transforming the way that we procure, develop, and deliver software to support the operational community. And some would argue that, in conflict and in competition, those things will be achieved through advanced and effective software development approaches and processes and techniques and things like that. And, I don't want to oversell or anything like that, but there truly is a transformation kind of going on right now. And so, I would just, say to you as a potential candidate that if you're interested in something like that, this is kind of the place where it's happening, not just here at Level Up, but within the other program offices that are participating in this particular hiring event, whether they be Platform One or JCC2 or Level Up or other. And so we definitely need to bring in folks that have new and effective ideas and ways to get after this problem set and to continue advancing us down the court, if you will. But I believe there's a tremendous amount of reward to be had from the employees that participate in that overall activity. And again, like I said, it doesn't happen too often, but I believe we're in one of those sort of periods of time right now where we really have the will from folks like myself and my team. We have the will from our leadership, and it's necessary to get after the objectives that our chief has laid out for us in Accelerate, Change, or Lose.
Great, sir. Thank you so much. Mr. Owens, over to you.
Sure. I've seen more change in the last 2 years in my 36 years in the Air Force, both on active duty and now as a civil servant, than I have in those prior 34 years. Things are moving so fast, and what Colonel Priestley said is true. The leadership understands it, that we have to be right at the tip of capability delivery technologies to outpace our peers. And, I don't want to be too dramatic here, but, it's a serious capability. So the things that I'm seeing from Colonel Priestley and his team and other teams is just very exciting. I wish I didn't have a gray beard. I wish I was, had the opportunities that you guys do to be a part of that. And there was a question about work-life balance. I wanted to just quickly mention that the Air Force understands that we need to be a competitive workplace that's attractive, and we realize that balance is part of that. However, trust me, you're going to love the mission that you have in the Air Force, and have to discipline yourself to have that work-life balance because you love what you do. But the leadership understands that we've got to progress and be a place that people want to come to work. So things like balance and exciting, mission is a key part of that.
Great, thank you, sir. All right, well, that does bring us to the end of our session today. On behalf of the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, we would like to join everyone, whether you joined us today for a few minutes, the full time, or for those who will look at this recording after the fact. We really appreciate your time, your interest in the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center in particular, our software enterprise. As a reminder, we do have a registration currently open for our existing hiring effort, so that closes on May 1st. We hope that many of you that are seeing this video or that have joined us today, that you'll consider providing us with your resume and being considered for some of the exciting opportunities that we've had the opportunity to talk about today. So without further ado, just thank you everyone so much for joining us. Thank you to our panel members. Thank you to the Air Force Civilian Service for hosting us. We hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you.